Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Welcome to NLL Lacrosse Talk with Gary Groob and our very special guest, Angus Rodding of the AL, CUFLA, and the OSL. How you doing, Angus?
I'm well, thanks. How are you guys doing?
Good. Well, we got somebody close by where I am. You're in Barrie. I'm in Wasaga Beach. We're not far off. We enjoy every storm together that comes around in the winter. Just a lot of fun they are. But let's talk about yourself and how you picked up a stick and what made you decide to make it lacrosse.
Yeah, for sure. So growing up in Canada, it's always lacrosse in the summer, hockey in the winter. And my parents had the stick in my hands, I think, when I was 4. So I grew up in Barrie playing for the Tornadoes, and they're now the Barrie Bombers. And pretty much played field and box for them every summer growing up. Bounced a little bit to Innisfil for a brief period of time, and then back to Barrie. And basically, yeah, it's always been a sport that we've had in our family. Both my cousins were really into it, and I followed suit and haven't put the stick down since.
What's kept you in it?
Honestly, love the sport. So big time, it's the aggression, right? You don't really see any other sport other than hockey where a lot flies on the floor and the refs aren't too tight on the rules. You can really give someone a whack, but even when I take the breaks, when I get back into the game, when you wear that first hit, you kind of smile, you enjoy it, right? You enjoy the aggression. So I'd say that's pretty much what keeps me in it.
And the last question for me off the start is all the different leagues that you're involved in. Lacrosse is a lot more different than a lot of other sports because there's micro leagues, and different times of the year. It's like you can play lacrosse 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. What advantage is there to that, do you think? How does that help lacrosse keep going?
Well, that's great, isn't it? Like you can play, like you said, all the time. And I guess the general population gets exposed to the PLL and the NLL. They're growing in their own ways. But when I describe what I play to people, it's really cut up between summer season and winter season now. And before, field lacrosse was always spring, box lacrosse, summer. And it's nice because, so many NLL spots and professional spots are held by players from Ontario. So you really enjoy the summer box lacrosse because all those guys come back to their hometowns and they keep playing, right? And so you just get exposed to so much different talent and so many different teams that it's always engaging and you never get tired of the same league.
Yeah, and there's always something to learn, and everybody's learning from each other. It's a hyperactive version of people playing with each other and understanding not only the players that they play with and against, but the game itself.
Yeah, exactly. And the connections you make, lacrosse is such a small world that you see the same people in and out of the arenas all the time. And it's always, keep it friendly with them on the floor, your competitors, but it's great to build that network with all your friends, whether you're playing against them or with them.
I want to start with when you began playing, who was most instrumental in your development to get started and get that passion going?
Yeah, so for that, I'd have to refer to my father. So basically, he started off as always being like the trainer for our teams. He'd hop into the assistant coaching position, but he was always involved. He was like that for hockey and lacrosse. And I'll never forget, car rides home, he's giving me pointers and stuff, right? And basically they were always driving me, my parents were to keep me competitive, keep improving, and keep working on and off the floor, right? So they were always pushing me, work out, stay in shape, and do extracurriculars that could help me with lacrosse, My mom was big into the cross country running for cardio. So I was doing that every fall in high school and elementary school.
Right.
And then I found other sports to play, like rugby, to work on the aggression, the physical. So it gave me something to, build muscle towards and stay aggressive.
Absolutely. Now you went to high school over Bear Creek Secondary, and let's talk a little bit about the lacrosse program there and how that helped along.
Yeah, for sure. So when I entered grade 9, we didn't have a lacrosse program, but I was fortunate enough that my dad taught at the school. So we entered and we had a big presence of junior A lacrosse players there. So a lot of guys that played for the Lakeshores, we had Tanner Poole, other guys like that. And so basically they were involved and they're like, yeah, let's start a lacrosse team. So it wasn't very big. I'd say we ranged from, 10 to 15 roster spots every game, lots of field time. But as soon as we started a team, I know Eastview Secondary School started a team up here in Simcoe County. Huntsville schools always had a team, so we joined their loop. And then there's a couple schools in Aurelia that also had a team. So, we stayed in our little bubble, but it was good competitive lacrosse. You got to see everyone you played against from your home centers, the Aurelias, the Huntsvilles. It was a lot of fun.
Right. Last year, though, in 2018, you didn't have a program again. What happened?
In terms of high school? Yeah. So I think basically it kind of fizzled out. So a lot of the guys graduated, the upperclassmen, and then it eventually was just, me and a few other guys that really wanted to play lacrosse still. But the numbers just weren't there, unfortunately. We had the motivation, but you still need 9 players and a goalie. So, it makes it a little difficult. Sure. So we all kind of just came together and we're like, you know what, we're going to put this to rest. And we actually all went and played rugby instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little more soothing, is it?
Exactly. You're not getting whacked with a 6-foot long stick.
Right. Now we're just getting into a bit of junior, and junior B, you're in Newmarket. That's a heck of a trip from Barrie, isn't it?
Not too bad. It's certainly, it's a bit of a commute, about an hour each way. But the Saints organization welcomed me. I played my first year at junior C in Barrie for the Bombers, and then made that jump that following year. And the Newmarket Saints welcomed me with open arms. Right.
You had a pretty successful year too with them. It looks like you got your footing in junior B.
Yeah, I'd say that's really where I started to learn just how fast-paced lacrosse can be at that higher level. Right, you really start to dive into the offense, defense, and that's where I was able to find my role as an O guy. And then basically playing with those upper years. So that's the first time you're playing with someone that's more than 1 year older than you, right? So I would say, that really opens you up to the aggression and the potential that lacrosse holds. So that was really fundamental in building the lacrosse career.
Right. No, it's funny because I've watched you a number of years in a number of leagues, and I've watched you in a number of positions. I've watched you play defense. I've watched you play transition. I've watched you play offense. Which one really settles in for you that you're most comfortable? I would think offense, because you've got the stick skills and, being a big man, you're quite quick.
So I appreciate that. Thank you. But I would agree. So offense, I grew up playing offense, and, that's kind of where I'm most comfortable. I didn't hit a growth spurt until quite late, like grade 12. So basically, as soon as I hit that, grew 6 inches, coaches were looking at me and saying, all right, let's put the big guy back on defense. So it was a bit of an adjustment, but we got there. So I'm happy to play any position wherever any team will have me. But preferably offense. But like I said, I'm a big team guy, so I like to play everywhere, help wherever I can.
Right. Now, junior A, you wind up with the Barrie Lakeshores. You're back in your backyard. It's if it's anything like the Orangeville guys, this is what everybody dreams of, is playing, junior A for your home squad. Is it the same over in Barrie?
Yes, sir. Yeah, when we had the squad, everyone's goal, coming out of the Bombers organization was to get that call, go up to the Lakeshores. And it was awesome, right? So you get introduced to that junior A league, and you're playing against the likes of Jeff T, Tahoka Nanticoke, like all those great players that are in the NLL right now. And honestly, you have to take a step back and look at it, and you're like, holy crap, we're sharing the floor with some of the greatest talents that lacrosse has to offer right now. And so just that alone was really rewarding.
Definitely. Now, you run into COVID in the middle of all this, and it shuts the world down dead. How do you keep active?
Yeah, so that's really hard because gyms were shut down, lacrosse floors shut down. That year, I stayed back in Kingston out at Queens. I spent the summer there. So basically a lot of running. And during COVID is when I actually picked up golf. So I started walking, 18, 27 holes a day, and running on the side. And that's how I was trying to stay active. That and, lifting a few free weights in the home gym downstairs.
Right. Let's get into Queens. Why Queens? You had a few other things on the radar. I know you had Western on your radar. You had a McMaster on your radar. Why Queens?
So I chose Queens because of the engineering program they had. I knew I wanted to go into engineering. Like you mentioned, I applied to Western Eng and McMaster Engineering as well. Got into those, but Queen's really sold me. They promote the work together dynamic within the program. So you're doing all your courses, all your projects in groups. Instead of competing with the other students, you're all working together. And so that really sold me when I did my tour of Queen's. And then shortly after that, so I accepted my offer to Queen's, reached out to their lacrosse coach, and I was sold then as well, because so it was the coaching duo of Alec Johnson and Paul Johnson, and they just promoted it so well. And, you know, they really made it feel like a home. It was a real team. You know, they'd have us over to their house for barbecues, pool days, stuff like that. And it was really a great dynamic to be a part of.
Right. Let's talk a little bit more about the program itself. You primarily as a box guy going into field, I know you did some early field stuff, but this now is serious. You know,
Yes.
Boxes or field is serious. How did you adjust to this all? A lot more room.
A lot more room. And as a bigger guy, you really have to get that speed up, get that footwork up. So a lot of sprints, a lot of, you know, ladder work, a lot of all that stuff. And you learn pretty quickly that you have to outrun them, or else you're just going to get dealt with pretty quickly. And I do remember, I have one distinct memory of first day of training camp. One of the long poles, the seniors on the team, I was dodging against him. He slashed me, broke it right over my shoulder. And that was kind of the eye opening where I was like, damn, this is, it's not your minor field lacrosse anymore. You're U19 field lacrosse, right?
Right.
These are men you're playing against.
Now you work your way up in the program all the way up to captain in your last year. Looking at your numbers, your growth as an attacker also you got very comfortable with field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that plays a part in familiarity with the attack line I was working with. So in my second year, we had a rookie come in named Carter McKenzie. And then in that year as well, we were really familiar with our ex-attackmen, and we just found a really good dynamic with that group. You know, a lot of my class was starting, so we were really close, and we were always on the field together practicing. And I really just found my groove. I felt like, you know, I knew where I needed to be, where people wanted to get me the ball, or where I needed people to be to get the ball, and where they were going to be that was open. So we really just found all those seams. And it was like we were going through the motions, but you know in the back of your head where someone's going to be at all times. And we really just meshed off of that.
Right. Did you find it more difficult because you're used to really going on what's in front of you? Now you're more blueprinted in field to try to make that adjustment.
Yeah. So I would say the biggest adjustment between box and field is you have the time, but you also, box is so fast paced. You have 30 seconds to get the shot off, where you don't really get into sets and set plays, right? You might open your offense with a set play, but after that, it's, you know, you find the seams, you work the 2-man, 3-man side. It's good. In field lacrosse, I was in the CUFLA that didn't have the shot clock. So it was really slow it down. And basically we had this playbook, you know, yay thick, we had to learn. And it was just more, you know, based off the plays. If this doesn't work, there's always a backup out of that set and everything like that. So I'd say slowing it down, being patient. You know, in field in the CUFLA at that time, you were able to hold the ball for 3-4 minutes at a time, right? So you just keep working it, and that's probably why it was so cardio demanding. But
Right.
But yeah, I'd say that's the biggest adjustment is, you know, the X's and O's portion of it.
Right. And some great players came out of CUFLA as well, because we keep hearing all the time NCAA. But, you know, guys like Scott Dominey, who were just spectacular for Nipissing, and a number of other guys did their whole career over in CUFLA. Is there a way we can keep our Canadian talent here and make it more enticing, do you think, to keep that talent here?
Yeah, for sure. So I know there'd be a bunch of insurance that you'd have to jump through, hoops you have to jump through. But I've always said, imagine the CUFLA was box lacrosse. I bet we'd even draw some American talent up to Canada, right? I think that would make it amazing. You know, there's nothing wrong with the CUFLA the way it is, but if you turn it into, you know, the foremost sport in Canada, which is the box version of the game, I think you do a very good job of allowing players to play year round, you know, and I think people would tend to hold back if they want to cherish the NLL or work towards the NLL instead of the PLL type of ordeal.
Right. Well, we have Scott Box is the commissioner now. Tom Bolesky is the deputy commissioner. So you got guys who are really knowledgeable in box as well, plus have good Rolodexes, and I'm good friends with both. And I actually had Tom on the show to talk about all the upcoming things over the next few years that they're looking to do, and little tinkers and changes to make it a little bit more enticing, a little bit more interesting for everybody as well. In the short time that they've been there, I think they've done some pretty great work over the last number of years comparative. What's your thoughts having a look now that we also have our mutual Brady, who's a Queen's coach?
Yeah, for sure. So, I love the program when I was there. And after talking to Brady over in Prague, I noticed they took the program the next level. So they have experience playing in the States, and that's kind of the mentality they went after for Queens Lacrosse. I know they have a regimented workout program, they keep tabs on all their players, all their mile times, stuff like that. So I'd say it's a little more disciplined. However, I'd say it's a lot more disciplined there now. The addition of the shot clock definitely really plays into having that American experience on the sideline there.
Right.
And just hearing Brady and Connor, talk about the plays, it's really quite poetic almost.
Right.
They know what they're doing. The X's and O's, it flows naturally to them. So it's good to see that Queens went deep this year as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know it was the first time when I was in fourth year that we had made the Begataway Cup without having the home bid.
Right.
And watching those guys online go all the way to the finals this year and having some friends still left on that team, I was just head over heels for them.
Oh yeah. And it was exciting because the guys you expected to make it to the finals, neither made it.
Yeah,
so it was a great final. That was just something to behold. It was completely, a sporadic moment. And it was wonderful to watch and a great game to go with it.
Mm-hmm. And I do also think a big thing is they upped the scouting. So they had a lot of scouting. Brady was telling me on every team they played, and they knew the ins and outs of where every offense and defense would break down against the teams they were playing against. And it showed. It really did. The way they beat Guelph and, came close to Western, although the second half got away from them a little bit there. It was a good fight.
Right. Now, we come out of COVID, and we're back to Junior A here. And we changed commissioners also in Junior A. Your career stemmed through two commissioners, the old and the into the new millennium kind of idea. Mm-hmm. They have the bubble season. Did you get a chance to play in that?
So unfortunately, I didn't. I think that was part of when I was still in Kingston playing, and I didn't have a car out there, so you're kind of stranded way out east.
Right.
But also they folded the Barrie Lakeshores organization. And after that, I kind of, I was playing at Queens. I wanted to do as well as I could at university. My life was kind of there. So I really, really started to focus on, grinding field lacrosse. That being said, I do live with a lot of regret not getting back into Junior A because you only get 5 years and I only played, 2 of them. So
right.
I did miss a lot of development in that sense. And then in turn, probably missed, a significant draft year, which would have helped my career a lot, but is what it is.
Absolutely. That little bubble there, that 2-week thing, actually, I would say it made Nathan Grennan's career because it took him from really out of nowhere. And he had such a great couple of weeks with Brampton that it put him into the first round draft.
Oh, so, exactly. And you see that fight pop up all the time on your social media, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that solidified him as a grinder, Yeah.
And Orleman too, for that matter. It was a good fight for him too. But let's go talking about a little bit of OSL, Senior B. Now, originally Clearview, now of course Collingwood. Talk about playing in the league itself and the talent levels, because we've seen some great years when the Prezi was here a couple of years ago, and then we've seen them tailor it down a little bit, which is the way it should be. It shouldn't be an NLL squad there. We have MSL for that.
Yeah, exactly. And I know this year, since Brooklyn's a powerhouse, they put the rule in. I think you're only allowed 3 NLL rostered players in the on your OSL teams there. Mm-hmm. But like I said, Brooklyn's a powerhouse. They have so much talent there. Six Nations has a lot of talent coming out of their organization, where it's it's almost like they fill out the MSL teams, and then the trickle down players are filling up the OSL rosters.
Right.
Now, the unique thing about playing in Collingwood is there's no direct program or MSL affiliate. Like, we kind of had a different affiliate every year. So a lot of our roster spots are held up by local guys, which is nice. So I'll still be playing with all the guys I grew up playing against and with. So, it keeps that camaraderie tight up here in Collingwood.
Right. I guess Collingwood and Ennismore are the two that are, homegrown talent, and then everybody else is just these crazy lineups.
Exactly. Yeah. There's for some reason in both Clearview and Collingwood, we open our seasons on Saturday nights on the res. And, that's always a game where, you're walking away with quite a few more lumps than goals,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always love watching Six Nations play with wooden sticks too. So it's always fun.
Oh, and yeah, people don't really realize that once you get back into Ontario, it's free game with the woodies, and the nets get smaller, and the goalies have the triangle sticks. It's makes it a lot harder to score, and you have to be a lot more skilled because of it.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you had a great start to this year, and unfortunately an injury in a game where you had 4 goals already after 2 periods. So it's just, and then boom. Let's talk about the game, and let's talk about the injury, and let's talk about your recovery.
Yeah, for sure. So in Prague, a couple of weeks before that, I had taken a little slip on the slippery turf. You play outdoors, it gets rained on, and rolled my ankle. Pretty mild injury. It took a couple of weeks to recover. Missed the first game of the season, but I came back ready to play. I was really itching to get back out there, and so come game time in Owen Sound there, I was ready to go. And I came out, I think, pretty hot. Took me a couple shifts to get my legs under me from playing the whole winter on a turf floor.
Yeah.
But the ball started to flow on our offense, and I got lucky that the ball came to me at the right times, and I was able to put it in the back of the net, 4 times over the first couple periods. Now, I took a little bit of a tumble in the 3rd period, just kind of lost my footing, hyperextended my knee, and ended up dislocating my knee. And so that put a abrupt halt to my senior B season this year. And, I'm going through the recovery right now. I'm lucky that I didn't tear anything, no permanent damage. I'm just waiting for the swelling and the bruising to go down before I can, start getting back into it. But basically, the recovery is a lot of physio. I've been doing a lot of needling, acupuncture, and a lot of golfing. I've been walking a lot of rounds of golf. I find the elevation change, it helps a lot just with that knee strength, slow pace sports. So I'm well on my way to being back, but my target is I'll be healthy and ready to go for the ALL season this November.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about your time in major series. Now, you have a distinction there playing for Owen Sound, is that you were able to get the first goal of that franchise, the reincarnated one, at home and on the road. Now, the one on the road, I actually was at the Bread and Cheese game. I was in the booth with Daryl Smart, and beautiful. You guys played a fantastic first period, and it was like, wow. And then slowly, you play an all-star team, and eventually it just grinds you and wear you down. But the team really, and since that point, has been on a growing mission. It isn't going overnight, but it is on a growing thing. Talk about your time and talk about those 2 big moments.
Yeah, for sure. So I didn't expect to play that game. I got told that Friday after senior B practice that they wanted me up. And I was like, heck yeah, we'll never turn down an opportunity like that. And I'm really thankful for the organization to have me up there. Jonesy reached out, and just grateful. I didn't really know what I was getting into because the previous season, I played a couple games for Brooklyn against Peterborough and Brampton. And so, great teams, but that Six Nations team is something else, right? So you step on that floor, they have that arena packed. They've had games all day, so it's probably about 35 degrees in there, and you're just like, holy crap, that's lacrosse. That's Ontario lacrosse for you, right? And playing against some of those guys on the other side of that floor was just crazy. Watching Lyle Thompson work his magic it's majestic, right? So it's like, it was a great honor to get out there. And I know right before my goal there, I actually got a pass fumbled the pass, should have caught it. And I'm like, had to give my head a shake. I'm like, you just got to settle in, just play your game. And so the next time that ball came to me, I decided to cut across and shoot it. And, by the luck, I found the back of the net. So there's that one. And then the one at the Bayshore was kind of the same thing, where I just cut across the middle and decided to unload a shot, and I got lucky and found the back of the net.
You are way too modest, but I appreciate that. It's funny though, because when you're playing Six Nations, you almost have to stop yourself from being a spectator while on the floor, because they're so great and they can do so many great things so quickly that sometimes you just stand there and it's like, wait a minute, I got to get back into play.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't get caught watching. You got to realize that you're the competitor there, and you're the one that's in between them doing those great things and shutting them down. So as long as you can keep doing that and stay true to that, you'll have an all right time playing them.
What was it like working with Steve McCarthy? He's an old friend of mine from the Brampton days of both of us in there, and him and Adam Jones as a coach.
Both of those guys were great to me. Steve was actually one of the first people who texted me after I got injured, saying he hopes I'm all right and wished me a speedy recovery. So very grateful for that. And then, like I said, both Steve and Jonesy gave me that opportunity to really go out there and show what I got on offense in the MSL and last year. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity, because, it's a grind trying to work your way up. But once you get those opportunities, you just have to be thankful.
Absolutely. Now, I want to pivot over to the Arena Lacrosse League. You've mentioned it. And of course, I've talked about it a lot, being media guy for Paul and for the league. And of course, every arena we seem to run across each other. But let's talk about the league itself and how much of a value it is to young players coming up, where this league is teaching you how to be a pro and how to stay a pro with NLL coaching, NLL units, NLL rules, and all the rest of that stuff.
Yeah, I think the ALL is great, where you keep true to the NLL rules. You throw down turf in the arena, so you're pretty much playing the exact same game, just one tier lower. And as a young guy going into that, getting drafted, it was a pretty big awakening to see how fast the sport really can be. You don't see that type of speed in MSL or even OSL, really. You play it on concrete in the summer. Everyone's being a little more weary of how fast they're moving, how hard they're pivoting. But once you get onto that turf and you have the true grip on your shoes, it's flying, the pace of play almost. So you walk out of that first game, sucking wind, because you're like, holy crap. You're pushing at transition, you're pushing at offense. It's crazy. But I think it's really good for the young guys, really to know what type of caliber they have to play to want to make that cut to the NLL, to make that jump, and also get looks, because, in the crowd every time you have personnel from the NLL looking to see, if we have a roster spot open up, someone get injured, who they can pick up and bring up to their practice rosters. So, great opportunity to get noticed, as well as a great opportunity to improve.
Right. Just, there's about 30 or 35 guys have gone up from the ALL and have found homes in the NLL. Names that come to mind is Zach Higgins, Steve Orleman, Mike Triolo is one that really made a big impact, played for Oshawa and a few other teams. And now he's sailing in Saskatchewan. But the league has done this for many. And the beautiful thing about it is it's not just the game itself. It's everything about the experience coming into the arena, how to be with your team, how to be a teammate, the game itself afterwards as well, and how to hold yourself as a professional, which are all very useful tools when teams are looking at who you are as character.
No, for sure. I couldn't agree more with that. I've been very happy with my time in the ALL and can't wait for next season.
Right. Now, you were playing for Oshawa, and the blockbuster trade was you going to Peterborough, take Tony going over to Oshawa for the end of the season. It's still a pretty big name to be traded for. So,
yeah, I'd say so. I'd say in Oshawa, so I was coming out to all the practices, all the floor times, and we had a really heavy left side, with John St. John, Gilmore, and all those guys on the left side. There wasn't really, too much space for me on that left side on offense. And then you go back to defense, and you also have an unbelievable roster back there. So I think basically Hiltz called me up and he's like, you know what, we appreciate the commitment, but we're going to move you so you have the opportunity to actually get some real minutes. And I couldn't appreciate that more. You know, the honesty and him willing to help me progress my career. You know, that's great. And I didn't know who I was getting traded for, but I got told the night before we played Peterborough. So the next day I was suiting up for the other team, you know, playing the old squad. Right. It was crazy. Yeah. Crazy 48 hours there.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's funny because the ALL is probably the best place for your statistics. Paul is absolutely on point when it comes to every single statistic on every single game, right down to rewatching it and changing whatever needs to be changed so the right person gets credit for goals and assists.
Oh, and you become grateful for that once you play a few years of summer ball here, where there's a lot of phantom goals and phantom assists floating around. You know, you have to really keep track of your own stats if you want an accurate reading.
It's funny, you know, I was having a conversation with Ziggy Muzo, who was the former president of Brampton and, of course, with the Philadelphia Wings in the 70s. And the thing that I had never really thought about that he brought up is, what about the records in places like MSL or even OSL? Do they have any validity? Because we've got phantom things here and we've got people who don't keep track there and really weird stats that come along the way. What happens to all those things?
Yeah, I know it's kind of a gray area, right? But I'd say, you know, they give the points to the guys who are on the floor. So if you're contributing and producing, in general, what goes around comes around, right? So I'd 100% say there's most definitely validity in all the records, right? That being said, the game has changed a lot. You know, I mean, it's one of the oldest leagues in, you know, North America, the world, right? So there's a lot of history there, and, you know, they've added teams, dropped teams, but overall records hold true. And, you know, that's the end of it.
Right. Definitely. All right, let's talk about the Rubeski tournament. You and I just got back not long ago from Prague. My initial thing, my first trip up there was just to look around at the sheer beauty of the place, even before going to Raditon. What was your initial thing? I know we talked a lot on the plane and talked a lot about what's there. And when you first got on the ground and actually had a chance to see this place for yourself, what was your initial feeling?
Yeah, so the first stop we made was straight from the airport to drop our bags off in the locker room. And you hop off the subway, you walk through a little corridor, you know, past a couple of houses, and boom, the stadium's right there, surround seating, big jumbotron, huge speaker system, music going. And when we first got there was no one. So we just dropped our bags off, you know, grabbed a pint in the bar there, kind of took it all in, and then we went to our hotels for the night. You come back the next day, and holy cow, we didn't play until probably 5:30, I think, our first game.
Yep.
And that place was bumping. You know, everyone had gotten off work, kids are out of school, and you're probably sitting playing in front of 2,000 fans all of a sudden. You know, it's standing room only under the lights. It really doesn't get much better than that. It's a crazy experience, and it's kind of just like a holy crap moment. You know, you walk in there and you're like, damn, I can't believe this.
Talk about the weather.
Unpredictable, to say the least. So our first practice, sun shining, beautiful. Same with the first game, great. And then for the next 3 days, it was just rain and mud. And, you know, you're just trying to keep the ball in your stick, keep the passes from going over the boards. And it really adds an element to it, you know. And we get used to that playing field, you know, up in the spring, where all of minor field was, you know, you're battling through hail, snow, rain. Same with the CUFLA in the fall, you're battling through the snow and the rain and the cold. So it's nothing we're foreign to, but it's box lacrosse, and it requires that much more accuracy on your shots, to move the ball that much quicker, to move your feet that much quicker. It's just so much faster that it really adds an element.
Absolutely. I've watched referees over the years take their helmets off because they couldn't see through the visors. There was so much rain.
Yeah, no, it was quite the turn of events, but it's all part of the experience, right?
Absolutely.
Brought us all together with trying to find a place to dry our equipment out overnight, and made for some good bonding and some good stories.
It's funny because I brought that up with Brady when he was on the show. That's where we missed Tuna. Tuna was the best equipment manager I had ever had the pleasure of meeting and working with, is I remember calling a number of times Ubers for him so he could take all the uniforms to a laundromat in Prague and dry it out between games for you guys. So that you guys would have, in days where you're playing 2 games or not till the next day, you'd have dry uniforms. So over and above. So, he was a special man.
And I can see why you'd appreciate that because, nothing worse than throwing on some, wet equipment that's barely sliding up your arms. And it gets gritty for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Talk about working with Hall of Famers Wayne Colley and Doug Louie with the team with the Gaels.
So that was amazing. So, we saw that in the first practice, the knowledge that was trying to get passed down to us. We were going through our systems, we're getting told what to do. And it's just kind of, they knew what needed to be done in that tournament. It's not your traditional box lacrosse. Like you watch all these teams play, they're not playing your traditional, North American Ontario box lacrosse where it's all pick and rolls. It's all, 2-man game, 3-man game. It's a lot of outside shots, pushing the ball fast in transition. And I'd say it's faster and less aggressive almost down there, right? It turns into more of a field lacrosse, box lacrosse hybrid. So with them there on the bench, knowing what had to be done because they've had the success in the past in that tournament, it was great knowledge to pass down onto us just because it really gave us a feel for what needed to be done during that tournament.
Right. What went right for the team there?
Yeah, so, first game went well, squeaked out the win, but second game didn't go so well. We kind of met as a team. We were like, all right, we're getting beat a little bit on transition here. They're picking up the ball on defense. Offense are changing. Defense are coming on, but they're getting to the net first. So we kind of changed up what we were going to do. We kept the O guys. So we ran a core set of O guys, like 3 consistent O guys. And then we had guys on O that would come back on D and play, me being one of those guys. So it just added that. It helped it slow down the transition pretty much. You don't let that guy to the net right away, force them to set up. It gives everyone time to get on the floor, get set up. You're not feeling so scattered. And I think that was a big adjustment we made between, those first couple games. And another one is shoot the ball, right? You're playing in the rain. You don't know where that ball's going precisely, but neither does the goalie, right? So, hey, why not shoot it a little bit more and it'll squeak through a few more times.
Absolutely. What could have been better in your opinion?
I think a big thing we battled was the roster size.
Right.
I think we had 12 guys. We're used to playing with 18 and a couple goalies in Ontario. So, you're running. I noticed that we were good for about the first half, and then the cardio difference, the fatigue really started to set in, and that's what set us aside from some of those other teams where all of a sudden they were pushing the ball hard and they were fresh coming out on O, and we just didn't have the legs to do it because we've been, double shifting all game. Right. So I think that played a big part. Nothing you can do about that, right? We're all adults and we all have lives to live. So it's like you commit to coming to Prague and stuff comes up all the time, right? So you just make do. But I think that was one of the big things that if you came with a full roster, you'd be a lot better off.
Sure.
For being able to play the full games, especially when they get a little longer.
How about the difference between the European lacrosse and what we're used to in North America?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, I came in there wanting to play with the aggression like we do in North America, right? It's a hard hitting game. In general, I'd say defenders here are a lot bigger, a lot more aggressive, not afraid to whack you. But when you get over there, they're trying to avoid the hits instead of just engaging with you. So if you're on defense, they're trying to run around you instead of get the pick and roll game. So I'd say they're a little less used to the bigger checks. That's not a knock on them. It's just I think we play a little bit more of an aggressive game over here. Right. I think the refs let a little bit more go in Ontario as well than over there.
Yeah. The greatest chirp I heard from the Czech team to us was on Eddie Renault, and they called him maple syrup.
I had to stop in my tracks when I heard that one. I couldn't believe it. And I thought that was hilarious. You hear a bunch of Czech words, then just maple syrup, and their whole bench starts laughing. And, it shouldn't make you feel bad, but that's a pretty funny one.
Yeah, that one stopped me in my tracks too. When he come to the bench, which is just a absolutely dumb. They just called me maple syrup. That was fantastic.
Yeah, you can't beat it, and that's goes for all lacrosse, right? Some of the chirps and some of the banter is just great on the floor, and when you throw in that different language aspect, it gets even better.
Right. The team bonding though, over at Kurt's bar at Portlandu was incredible, and watching this team come together as the trip was going on was so much fun to watch everybody. Um, Obviously, y'all knew each other from playing against each other and with each other through different leagues, but just to watch everybody in the camaraderie develop over that week was pretty amazing.
It was crazy. So we come in the first day for our first practice, and none of us have played together before. We've played against each other. Granted, we all have had scouting reports on each other, so we know the styles of play we all play. But yeah, we didn't really play with each other. We didn't really have time to mesh. And, a couple games in, after a couple of nights out with the boys and, a couple dinners at Kurt's bar and just, singing together and all that karaoke and having a few beers, it's great, right? And it really ties you together. Even if you're not on the floor working together, it gives you that sense of camaraderie and comfortableness with the rest of your team, right? You learn to trust them a little more on the floor. And yeah, we definitely meshed together and played more of a team sport after we got acquainted with each other better.
Absolutely. Would you do the trip again?
100%. So I went into it saying, so Graham Bergsma, I played with him the past couple of seasons. He's like, come on, Gus, it's something you always have to do. Like, you just have to do it. And I was like, okay, this is the year. I'm going to come over. I'm going to do it. I came over, did it, and 100% I would go back. That was such a great experience, not only the lacrosse and getting exposed to all those other teams, all that. Like, I was so surprised that, London put a team in and there's teams from Finland. Like, it's crazy, right? I didn't know lacrosse had picked up like it had over there. Lacrosse has always just been like, it's a Canada national sport, North American thing, but it's great to see it taking off. And then you also consider the aspect of, you're staying, like, we were playing lacrosse in Raditon, but you're staying downtown Prague, and you can't beat that, right? You're taking the Lime scooters everywhere with the boys. You're going to see all the churches, just walking around all the cobblestone at night, taking in the sights. We did a boat tour. All that stuff was great. And just the history that goes along with that town as well it's great to see. It's good for the history buffs as well. It's definitely would go there again.
Now, the NBLL out in the Czech Republic and surrounding places, Germany and a few other places, Austria, have teams. They have an 80-game season, believe it or not. And I had the commissioner on this show a couple of months back, and I had a chance to sit down with him when we were out in Prague. And it really is amazing. They even have an all-star game. It's wild. And, they're on YouTube and they do Czech TV and all kinds of things. Would this be enticing to you to pick up and go over there and maybe put a season in just to see what it's all about? I think it's one of the places, right?
Yeah, I think it would. It would definitely entice me a little bit. I love the thought of being able to do what I love, but also get some travel experience out of it. And that's how I viewed Prague, right? It's like, I want to travel Europe, but I also get to play lacrosse over there, which, the best of both worlds. So I think that would be absolutely amazing to get the opportunity to go play in another league, over in a different continent, travel around and just get exposed to all that different talent out there as well. Because, we've been playing against the same guys from Ontario, and our two age groups are our 5 years apart for, the past 15, 16 years. And it would be fun to get a little bit different exposure to some different players and playing types. And seeing how different their game is definitely something I'd like to explore.
Well, that's where the Custodies play, and that's where the TJ Malise play, and a few of the other teams that were in there from different spots are in that league. So, you can see why they have such good meshing, is that they play 80 games together, right? So,
and you can definitely tell when you're playing against them, it's like, that's a team that's been together for a long, long time, right? And they showed it on the floor for sure.
Absolutely. A few State of the Union questions, or the generalized questions is, do you think that we're at a stage now where lacrosse can be pushed across as a full-time gig?
I know we'd all like to see that, wouldn't we? These guys are putting their bodies on the line on the weekends just to show up for work on Monday morning with their black eyes and their bruised arms. And, you'd like to be able to make it a full-time thing. For as much as even me, I train, I find it hard to find the time between work, training, doing the other things I enjoy doing in life. They keep it all together. So to be able to make that a full-time thing and to be able to commit fully to one sport, one occupation, that'd be nice. And I think we're well on our way with, the professional field league, professional box league. The guys are getting paid in the summer back in Ontario here. I think we're well on our way. So that's definitely something I'd like to see.
Right. Would it be at the expense of you guys' careers though? That's the other thing to think about is guys like you have spent time to become, career guys. Does that separate you from, no, I don't want to do that anymore. Because now the beauty is, and I didn't think about it either till somebody brought it up to me, is a lot of guys are able to get into what they want to do down the road while they're having a career. So when the career is over, they can now be fully in. They're not bottom entry level. They're already up in the business world or wherever.
And you raise a good point there. Like right out of school, I was, starting my engineering career, but I was also playing lacrosse on the side. And that's a really good point because after you finish playing, you'd want, to hop back into something. You don't want to start bottom of the barrel, have to work your way up as, say a 30-year-old. That's a really good point. I mean, ideally we could get to the spot where you can make enough while you're playing that when you retire, you wouldn't have to get back into it. But for someone like me who's already invested so much time and money into, my professional career, that's something I would definitely want to continue on with.
That would depend on off season too. To do it the other way, you need an off season.
Yeah. Everyone needs time to heal up.
Yeah. And learn and take care of the education part of your life.
No, for sure.
If you just want to hold that cup up, that is a Rabeski cup for sure.
Oh yeah.
The clip is what gives it away.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's quite the feat of engineering, I'd say.
Absolutely. We don't need trays. We can carry 5, 6, 7, just clipping them together, and we've all learned how to do it correctly.
Exactly.
Now, with the Olympics in 3 years' time, that's ground zero. Mm-hmm. Now is our chance to get all the T's crossed, the I's dotted, because if we're on floor 3 or 4 now, that's when we hit the penthouse when 280 more countries are watching. My first question to you on this is your thoughts on sixes.
Sixes is a good median between field and box lacrosse, I would say. It keeps the sport fast paced, not a lot of hard stops like box lacrosse, right? You're going up and down quite a bit, which I like that aspect. At the same time, you'd like to see a format that you can play elsewhere. I know the PLL offers sixes in the summer, but other than that, you're kind of tied to a standard traditional field lacrosse or a traditional box lacrosse format. So I'm going to be very curious to know how these players that are competing for their countries kind of fall into those roles, playing a completely different and new format to them.
Right.
Honestly, yeah.
We've added a number of guys. Mark Millen was one of them who complained that grassroots-wise, we've left them out altogether. We spent a lot of time, a lot of money on club teams from junior C all the way up until professional. But we really haven't spent much time with the guys who love the game but aren't going to be good enough or aren't going to have that want to go that way. And we kind of leave them out to hang. Do you think sixes is the right idea maybe to learn? Because now you don't have to really worry about positions. Everybody's running everywhere, especially kids would be running with their sticks the way they go.
Right. It kind of brings back the minor lacrosse style where you're up, down, off instead of offense, defense. And I think that will definitely produce some more versatile players. You're going to get guys that have the D skills that are also forced to then work on their stick skills so they can go up, put the ball in the net. Right. And so in that sense, I think it's really good promotion for just all around player skill development.
Right. Because the sixes idea, we actually had the president of World Lacrosse on, and we had him explain why sixes. And it was the Olympic Committee that told him that there's 10,000 people, athletes and trainers and everybody else that was allowed in the Olympics. That's it. So if you're going to be bringing a team of 24 players, coaches, trainers, and everybody else, you're going to get 2 teams in there. That's about it. So if you want to have anything that is competitive, you're going to have to find a way to scale down. And they looked at the model of rugby sevens and how that worked. Mm-hmm. And that's how they came up. They also had to keep in mind places like Africa and things like that don't have box lacrosse hockey rinks available to them. They have fields. And if they can change the dimensions, so be it. But they would have fields. Mm-hmm. And putting all that together, if you want to get in, you're going to have to find a way. Hence the sexes idea.
Well, I think it's a good idea, and it's great to see us make that jump to the world stage, put lacrosse a little more on the map and grow the game. I think at the end of the day, that's the goal of it. And, that'll tie into, professional lacrosse players being able to make it a full-time gig.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always thought myself was once we got them watching, then we can teach them tradition.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like anyone I bring to watch lacrosse right now, they're just like, holy crap. You play this sport for fun, but also they're like, this is an amazing sport. You zing the ball around so fast. You're always moving, and it's so fast paced. Even when you go to the NLL games, they play music the whole time. It's a great atmosphere. They really engage the crowd. So I think we're well on our way there.
Right. The last point I want to bring up with you before we call it a day here is the lacrosse community. Now we talk about it ourselves and being part of it, and whether it's in media or it's in the stands or other things. As a player, the lacrosse community and the camaraderie, you talked a bit about it in the Rebeski tournament, but just in general, it doesn't matter where you go. Let's talk about that.
Well, my first point to that would be the lacrosse community is a small world. The people you see in one arena, chances are you're going to see them in every arena you're playing in, right? That being said, I think it's a very tight-knit community where once you're in it, once you start establishing your name, people hear about you quickly, which is a good thing, bad thing, depends on how you play it out, right? But yeah, I think the community is great. It's tight-knit, everyone's close, and everyone has a mutual respect for each other as well. Competitors on the floor and friends off the floor, right? No one ever has malicious intent really at the higher levels. Everyone just wants to win, and everyone has that compete, and that's why we still play it. So I would say that the community is very tight-knit, and it's a community I'm proud to be a part of.
Yeah, and this community is also shown time and time again when a big problem arises, whether it's illness, whether it's something to do with some outside factor. It is able to circle the wagons and come together like no other group that I've ever seen and help out one another.
Certainly. And you see it, I think we have quite a few Tucker out lymphoma games in the NLL every year. Yeah. And you're very correct where every time tragedy strikes the lacrosse world, we all come together as a whole to combat it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with all the stuff going on now, what is your time frame for getting back and starting to really start testing your knee?
Yeah, so I think I've already been running a little bit, testing it out, hitting the wall, basic stuff like that to keep the stick skills up. Yep. I think in a couple of weeks here, I'll be good to go non-contact, start to get back into the Collingwood practices. Obviously, I'm not on an active roster spot right now, so I won't be able to play. But just getting that exposure, getting back into it, getting back up to pace. And then a big thing will be keeping up the cardio part of the sport because the ALL is quite fast, and I'm going to need to be able to hop right back into it like I didn't miss a beat. So yeah, a couple of weeks to start playing buckets and gloves, and then just going to work my way up from there as my knee gets better.
Right. I appreciate you taking the time and discussing everything with us because it's fascinating to watch different journeys and different routes and all the other things and all the places that you've actually hit to get to where you need to be.
It's crazy, but I really appreciate you having me on here today. I love talking about lacrosse, and it's pretty much my life. So, hey, I'm always happy to contribute.
Absolutely. Frank?
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. Angus Rodding of the ALL, CFLA, and OSL. Also plays in Collingwood nearby. Might have to come check you out, see how they play up in Collingwood. Thanks for doing this. For Gary Groob, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci.